Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents A Die Hard Holiday by Aimee Nicole Walker, narrated by Joel Leslie. 1. Gabe. Whose bright idea was it to buy such a big house? I grumbled to myself as I hauled 4 massive suitcases up the grand staircase. I believe this house was your idea. Josh's accusation followed me up the steps. It didn't take him long to develop the fine-tuned hearing of a parent once we brought the babies home 10 months earlier in January. I would have loved to argue with him, but he was right. I knew Josh was looking for a bigger space for the two of us to move into so he could expand his salon by converting the personal residence upstairs into a lush, his word not mine, massage area. I'd fallen in love with our stately home, formerly known as George's Mansion, the first time I saw it after rolling into Blissville. Of course, I was living with a different man at the time and never would have guessed that I would live there with Josh and our twins. Life was turning out far better than I could have predicted back then, which meant that I needed to stop grumbling about our parents staying with us and be grateful our home was big enough for 8 people to cohabitate for 2 months. 2 freaking months. That's right. Both sets of grandparents showed up in time for Thanksgiving and planned to stay until we celebrated Dylan and Destiny's first birthday in January. I crazy love both sets of parents, but 8 weeks of quieting down our sexy times was just too much. It felt like we just got both kids to sleep through the night, and Big Daddy got to come out and play more often with Little Daddy when the Grandparent Express rolled into town the weekend before Thanksgiving. We'd mastered the art of being super quiet during sex with little people in the house, but I was certain our parents would know exactly what we were doing if we snuck off together during the kids' nap time. Why'd they have to bring so much stuff? We own a washer and dryer, for crying out loud. Stop your bitching, and I'll blow you. Josh's hushed words startled me because I didn't hear him come up the steps behind me. He was quiet and sneaky like a ninja, but the kind that promised sexual favors instead of killing you. We're going to have a fucking Norman Rockwell holiday, and you're going to behave. Or what? I was picturing him tying me to our bed or cuffing me to a chair in his dance studio to teach me another lesson. You'll ruin your mother's first Christmas with her grandchildren. Damn, my husband plays dirty. Damn you, Josh. That's what you said last night when I kept edging you and wouldn't let you come. He sounded pleased with himself, as he damn well should, but I wasn't about to feed into his ego. Did you follow me up here to bust my balls? I asked. No, I followed you up here so that I could suck your balls. I nearly tripped going up the next step, which would have been murder on the instant hard-on he always gave me. Are you teasing me? Do I ever? Josh never teased or offered something he wasn't willing to give. If he said he came up to suck my balls, then he did. But our parents are cuddling their infant grandbabies they haven't seen in a few months. Trust me, Captain Comes Hard, they'll forget we exist until their stomachs start to growl at dinner time. Is that why you had that huge lunch ready to go when they arrived? I asked. Josh's considerate scheming never failed to amaze me. Okay, scheming makes it sound like he's a shady character, which he isn't, but the man always has a good plan in place for every occasion. I benefited from his craftiness more often than not. You didn't seem too upset about the open-faced roast beef sandwiches with mashed potatoes and gravy that I served, Josh sassily replied right before he pinched my ass. I'm not upset. I'm continually amazed by your brilliance. I hastily dumped the luggage in our parents' suites, then grabbed Josh's hand and tugged him to our room. He was right. Our parents wouldn't even notice that we were missing. I closed and locked our bedroom door before I pushed my husband against it and dropped to my knees. Josh wasn't the only one capable of shaking things up a bit. It was my turn to knock him off kilter for once. I worked the buttons of his fly loose on his skinny jeans, because Josh rarely wore anything as casual as sweatpants, then pressed my nose to the bare flesh I uncovered. Josh's head bumped back against the door, and I felt the way his muscles trembled when I kissed a path from his navel to his trimmed pubic hair. I never got tired of the way my husband responded to my touch. Gabe, Josh moaned while threading his fingers through my hair. I so badly wanted to pay him back for the sensual torture he bestowed on me the night before, but I was too greedy and had no self-control when it came to wanting him. I knew it would always be that way, and that there would never come a day when I didn't need him just as much as the air I breathed. Regardless of Josh's assurances that our folks wouldn't notice we were missing, I wasn't willing to take the chance. I pulled his jeans down to mid-thigh and went about blowing his mind, while I pulled my dick out of my sweats and stroked it at the same pace until we both came. I rested my forehead against his thigh while we caught our breath, and our pounding hearts returned to a normal rhythm once again. Josh scraped his fingernails against my scalp, and my softening dick twitched like it was ready to fire back to life again. "Easy, killer," I said to my favorite appendage as I rose to my feet. Josh smiled wickedly at me, and I was tempted to toss him onto our bed and give him another round, but we heard collective gasps followed by, "Aww," coming from downstairs. "Oh my God, what if the babies took their first steps and we missed it?" Josh asked as he wrestled his jeans up his legs and back up his hips. "You know they've been on the verge lately." According to our friends, parents, and the baby books we read, most babies didn't start walking until they were a year old. Some babies took longer, and a few would walk sooner. Josh and I were convinced our perfect angels fell into the latter category. Both Dylan and Destiny had started pulling themselves up on the furniture and letting go to balance on their own. Their brazen independence didn't last long before they either fell onto their diapered butts or placed their hands back on the coffee table. We noticed that they had grown more confident and could balance longer over the past few days, and were certain that their first steps were right around the corner. "Fuck!" I jumped to my feet and yanked my sweats back up. Josh stopped me before I could open the door. He was laughing so hard that tears pooled in his hazel eyes. "What?" He was silently pointing to the front of my sweats. I looked down and saw that I had splattered cum on the front of them. "Damn it! You can use them to clean up the mess you made on the hardwood floors," Josh added, pointing to the pool of cum between my feet. I stepped out of my sweats and bent over to clean the floor. Josh took that exact moment to jerk open the door and run downstairs to make sure he got to the babies before me. I heard him yelling, "Daddy is coming, babies! You little—" I threw the soiled sweats in the hamper and pulled on a clean pair before I ran downstairs to make sure I didn't miss our children's first steps. "Pop is here, angels." 4 sets of grandparents' eyes raked over my body from my flushed cheeks down to my changed pants. The expressions ranged from humor to pride. "I pissed myself," I blurted, without thinking. Jesus, my fake excuse was much more embarrassing than the truth. Where the fuck had that even come from? It was all Josh's fault, and that little brat was enjoying my misery. He smiled and pointed to my hair, which I realized was probably standing up all over from his hands messing it up. I felt my face burning with embarrassment as I raised my hands and tried to straighten it the best I could, without a mirror and a comb. "Do you need to borrow one of my Depends?" Bertie asked me after she dried her tears from laughing so hard with the rest of them. "They make 'em now so that they look like underwear instead of adult diapers. Women's underwear," she modified. "Thanks, Mom, but I'm sure it was just a one-time thing." Bertie loved when I had started calling her Mom, just as my mom loved when Josh started addressing her the same way. "Better hope not," my father murmured just loud enough for me to hear him. Then, in a louder voice, he asked, "Why did the 2 of you sprint down here like we were running off with your kids?" "We heard the oohs and ahs and figured they took their first steps without us," Josh explained. "Did we miss it?" "We were just fussing over how cute it is when they say Mama and Papa," Bill said. "They're too young to, Well, look at that!" We all watched as Destiny took her first tentative step without holding on to something. Her precious face scrunched up in fear as she wobbled a bit, then relaxed when she didn't fall. She gave us a big toothy grin when she took another step and still didn't fall. Dylan, not to be outdone by his younger sister, let go of the coffee table and stepped toward Destiny. He wasn't quite as graceful about it as his twin, so his one step led to 2 more quick ones as he teetered forward. It looked like he was trying to outrun his fall, which never happened. Luckily for him, his daddy scooped him up before he hit the floor. Destiny's eyes widened in alarm as she watched her brother tumble. She looked like she'd had enough adventure for one day and dropped to her butt with a soft plop. Dylan kicked his legs in a fit of anger because his plan had been thwarted. He was such a diva like his daddy. "Settle down, Tiger. You'll nail it tomorrow, I just know you will," Josh softly whispered in our son's ear before he set him on the rug next to his sister. "Did you teach him how to throw a tantrum like that?" Bertie asked her son before she looked at me. "Keep an eye on those two." She shifted her finger back and forth between Dylan and Josh before she added, "You're looking at the king of temper fits right there, and you don't need him showing the kids how it works." Bertie went on to tell us some of Josh's finer moments like she was narrating a highlight reel on ESPN's SportsCenter. While I never saw my husband throw himself down on the floor and kick his legs, I had been on the receiving end of his sexy, manipulative ways. I loved every single fucking second of it, too. "Yeah, like I'm going to teach my kids to make me miserable," Josh said, rolling his eyes over the ridiculousness. "No," Bertie countered. "But I can see you telling them only to use their skills on Papa." I narrowed my eyes because I could see him doing that, too. "You better not." Josh's eyes widened in stunned disbelief. "Why, Gabriel Allen Roman-Wyatt, I would never do something like that." "You wouldn't, huh?" His Southern Belle routine was a big indicator that he was up to no good. He probably already had Temper Fits 101 planned out and ready to teach. "Okay, not until they're old enough to know to save it for you. I don't want to risk that they'll throw themselves down in the middle of the store while they're with me." Conniving, but honest. "You would corrupt your own children to get a dig at me." "You corrupted my bird." "Huh! That foul-mouthed bird taught me a few words I didn't even know," I countered. "Gabriel, I cannot believe you kiss your babies and our mothers with that lying mouth." Josh's huffy indignation made me laugh hard enough to forget all my embarrassment over our parents knowing what we'd done upstairs. My mother laughed hard at my husband's antics until tears rolled down her face and she clutched her stomach. "Oh, it hurts." I could tell Josh was about to open his mouth and say something sassy like, "That's what she said," so I warned him with a dark look that promised some sort of retaliation he didn't want. I wasn't sure what the fuck I would have done if he hadn't listened, because my mind didn't work like his, so I was grateful when he let that opening pass. We lazed about and took things easy until our friends arrived for our weekly Sunday dinner. It amazed me how much had changed in our lives in a year's time. It seemed like just yesterday that Josh and I were newlyweds, awaiting the arrival of our children. Chaz and Kyle had just started to date. Meredith and Harley had just gotten engaged, and Emery and John were still pretending they weren't attracted to each other. Fast forward a year, we were about to celebrate the twins' first birthday. Chaz, Kyle, Mare, and Harley all took the plunge into matrimonial happiness, and John and Emery were planning a spring wedding. Adrian and Sally Ann had welcomed Precious Avery to their family in October, and Adriana was loving her role as big sister. The Dorchesters were the only ones who hadn't experienced any changes, which they both seemed to appreciate. John had fun harassing the couples with newborns, while Deanna threatened to make him sleep on the couch. He must have loved sleeping beside his wife, or his couch was seriously uncomfortable, because he quickly shut his mouth every time she brought it up. "Do you want me to come over early on Thanksgiving to help with the food prep?" Deanna asked. "You?" John asked his wife. Okay, maybe he hadn't learned his lesson yet. "I don't want him to get a paper cut when he opens the boxes of frozen macaroni and cheese," Deanna told her husband. "A true artist like Josh needs his hands to create magic." I wasn't sure if she meant the food he made from scratch, which was 90% of his cooking, or his hairstyling skills. In either case, he needed his talented hands to accomplish it. Then there was the sorcery he worked on me, but I doubted the group wanted to hear my take on that. My cell phone rang just as we sat down to dessert and coffee. I glanced at the caller ID and saw that it was the dispatcher from the police department, which rarely happened after I was promoted to captain. Adrian's phone went off just as I answered the call. "Captain Roman-Wyatt," I said into the phone. I smiled at Josh's little shiver of awareness. He swore up and down I used a deeper tone of voice with my new title.
Captain, I'm sorry to call you at home on a Sunday night, but there was an incident at Santa's village,
Officer Park said. What? Adrian and I asked at the same time. I glanced up and my eyes locked with my former partner's. It was obvious that someone, most likely Officer Wen, called to tell Adrian the news.
The village has been vandalized, and there's an effigy of Santa hanging from the flagpole,
she replied. What? I repeated. I was cautious about what I said out loud with Adriana and Dorchester's kids watching me.
You heard me, sir. It appears that someone is waging a war on Christmas.
Ho, 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 Adrian said from across the room.
2. Josh.
Someone's excited about Christmas,
Al said when he walked into the kitchen the next morning and caught me cooking breakfast to Christmas music. While it was true that I was looking forward to the holiday season more than any in my life, that wasn't the reason I was jamming to Jingle Bell Rock while flipping pancakes. He's nervous, upset, or trying not to kill one or all of us, my mother said to Al before I could respond. He's been this way his entire life. One year in high school, he was blaring Christmas music in the middle of May because he was anxious about final exams. She got quiet, and I felt her eyes on me. I'm wondering if he's slept yet. I slept, I replied with a wry grin. Well, a few hours before my little alarm clocks woke me up because they were hungry. Luckily, I managed well on short sleep.
Which is it? Al asked me. Are you nervous, upset, or trying not to kill us?
You've only been here one night, Al. How angry could I be at any of you? I adored my father-in-law, especially when I caught him grabbing Martina's ass that morning. It made my heart happy to know that the Wyatt men remained affectionate and grabby long after the newness faded.
We don't want to be a burden to you and Gabe, he replied.
I put my spatula down after I turned the banana nut pancakes I'd whipped up after I fed and changed Destiny and Dylan. I knew the parental units would be up and at it early. Gabe would have a long day ahead of him, and we could all use a good breakfast to start our day off right. You will never be a burden to us, Al. None of you will. We love you, and we want you here to share the twins' first Thanksgiving, Christmas, and their birthday. I'm over the moon that you guys got to see their first tiny steps. I'm just anxious about the call Gabe took from the police department that had him out late. I had joked about me wanting a Norman Rockwell Christmas, but Gabe was the one who wanted the holidays to be perfect. I knew how much he hated working late nights, but I also knew he wouldn't let some asshole ruin the holiday season for our town. Gabe had tiptoed into our room and headed straight for the shower to either warm up or try to unwind. I climbed out of bed and joined him. He said nothing for several moments, choosing to hold me tight instead of talking. When he finally spoke, it was my favorite 4 words.
You are my world.
I never got sick of hearing it, and I knew that you encompassed our children also. Dylan, Destiny, and I were the luckiest people on the planet.
Good morning,
Gabe said as he entered the kitchen. He walked straight to me, wrapped his arms around my waist, and rested his chin on my shoulder.
My favorite pancakes.
I wanted to do something special for you.
Any day that has you in it is special, sunshine.
Gabe kissed my cheek and unwrapped himself from my body so he could spend some time with our children before he had to leave. I heard Dylan squealing excitedly, and I knew what I'd see when I turned my head. Gabe made a big production of stealing a few of his Cheerios each morning, and Dylan would slap his high chair like he was angry, but the giggle that always followed proved how much Dylan loved his morning entertainment. Destiny did her best to bounce her Cheerios off Papa's forehead. She had shockingly good aim, and I thought we might be looking at the future softball pitcher for Blissville High. I only gave him a few Cheerios to tide him over until his pancakes are done, I warned Gabe. Dylan had a voracious appetite, like his papa, and got cranky when he was hungry, like his daddy. "What kind of pancakes are the babies getting?" Martina asked me. Apple cinnamon, I replied. I use applesauce as a liquid that binds the dry ingredients together. They love it, and I don't have to worry about them choking on a walnut.
Daddy makes some healthy whole wheat pancakes that Papa drowns in real butter and syrup. We make a great team,
Gabe said, smiling at me. That we do. After Gabe left for work, I headed out to run my pre-feast errands. I felt eyes on me as I made my way through the grocery store adding items in my cart, and I knew damn well it wasn't because they were admiring my outfit, although I did look damn good. They wanted to know what occurred the previous night and were looking for the courage to ask for details. Surely the husband of a police captain would know the salacious details of whatever happened. They didn't know their captain very well then, because I didn't even know where it, whatever it was, took place. Hell, I'd probably be the last person to know unless someone else told me. Gabe took his oath seriously, and blabbing about an unsolved case was against everything he believed in. Of course, by the time I left the grocery store, I'd learned enough from everyone else to piece together some of the puzzle. "Oh, my," Mrs. Jameson said, literally clutching her pearls. "It's really tragic about what happened at Santa's village last night." It figured that the oldest person in the store was the one who finally worked up the courage to pry. My mom always said that you cared less and less about propriety the older you got. I snickered internally because, based on her theory, that meant my mom should be pushing 90 instead of 65. Santa's village. That's where Gabe and Adrian were called out to last night. Adrian's response to the call finally made sense then. I thought he was just being sarcastic because the dispatcher interrupted our discussion about my annual ugly Christmas sweater party. Mrs. Jameson leaned forward and lowered her voice. "I nearly panicked when Mrs. Shofsky said that Santa was hung from the flagpole." She looked around to see if anyone was eavesdropping because she wanted the exclusive from the captain's man all to herself. "I couldn't imagine who would want to kill old man Adams." I tried not to laugh when she referred to Mr. Adams as old, because she was probably only a year younger than him. I had no doubt that she'd swing her purse and knock me upside my head if I called her Old Woman Jameson. "Anyway, I called the Adams house this morning to offer Eustace my condolences, and she informed me that her husband was still alive and kicking. Well, she put the phone down and went and checked to see if he was still breathing. She thought maybe I'd become clairvoyant like that Emerson and had experienced a vision." "Emery," I corrected. "Yeah, that's it," she replied, then leaned closer. Any closer and people would think something hanky was going on between us in the frozen food section of the Sack and Save. "Even though it turned out to be a life-sized stuffed Santa scarecrow type thing, if I was your husband, I would keep an eye out on Eustace. She sounded a little bit hopeful when she put me on hold to see if old man Adams was dead." "I'll be sure to pass that on to Gabe," I told her, trying my best to keep a straight face. "I hate to disappoint you, Mrs. Jameson, but Gabe doesn't share any details about his investigations with me. I didn't even know that someone hung Santa from the flagpole until just now. I don't have any gossip for you." She dropped her pearls long enough to cover her heart, like she was shocked that I would suggest such a thing. "You wound me, Joshua." But not long enough for her to stop from kissing my cheek. "Don't forget the whipped cream," she suggested after perusing my cart to see what I had picked out. "Oh, I make homemade cinnamon whipped cream. That frozen stuff isn't good enough for my pumpkin pie." "Well, aren't you fancy?" she asked with a sly smile. "I prefer fabulous, but I'll take fancy." "Go on with you now," she said, shooing me along. In the dairy aisle, Mrs. Schulman told me that she had seen an older Buick Skylark cruising near Santa's village a few times, but hadn't jotted down the license plate. I couldn't think of anyone who drove the car she described.
"Rust spots on the side, shaped like the ones you'd see on dairy cattle."
"I'll be sure to let Gabe know," I said with a smile.
Oh, I already told that sweet Officer Wynne this morning. He wrote it down.
As I was checking out, Mr. Beddinghurst was in front of me, and he said that Mr. Adams told him that morning on the phone that he had to close the village early the night before because he wasn't feeling well. Something to do with the sausage and sauerkraut he had for lunch giving him fits.
He took some Pepto-Bismol this morning and is feeling better.
That's good to hear, Mr. Beddinghurst.
I heard that several of the shops were vandalized. Is that true? How long do you think the village will be considered a crime scene?
The bagger, Bucky Dillwater, asked me. He sounded a little bit too hopeful, and I knew why. Santa's Village opened in the middle of October and closed on December 23rd. The rest of the year, the high school kids used it as makeout spots. I'd done my fair share of using a fake ID to wiggle a lock loose so I could get into one of the closed shops for a little tongue-on-tongue action back in the day. It sounded to me like Bucky, and probably the rest of the kids, were hoping the village stayed closed a little longer. Until the captain clears it, Shaggy, I replied soberly. You, Scooby, Freddy, Velma, and Daphne need to stay away from there because there are serious repercussions if you contaminate a crime scene. I sounded like I knew what the fuck I was talking about, but I got most of my police procedural talk from the closer. I just knew that Brenda Lee would be proud of me.
Yes, sir.
His face turned bright red, and I bet he suddenly wished he was back in English 101 instead of bagging groceries during Thanksgiving break. I let the sir shit pass and headed out to my car. I was down to my final stop and eager to get back home and away from prying eyes and big ears. Luckily, no one at the butcher shop wanted to pump me for information when I picked up my 2 fresh turkeys and spiral-cut ham. I was aware that I was going overboard, but I couldn't stop myself. At least my friends and family would have leftovers to last them a week. I decided to stop by Books and Brew on my way home to grab a peppermint mocha hot chocolate. One of the owners, Milo, was behind the counter with Emery's cousin Memphis, who was absent from dinner the previous night. I narrowed my eyes as I neared the order counter. He rarely missed dinner since he moved to town after Emery's brain surgery, so I wondered what had kept him away.
I'm sorry, he said, blushing profusely. I was cataloging my latest haul of comic books for the store and lost track of time.
I guess it's okay, but don't forget about Thanksgiving. It's on Thursday, I told him.
This Thursday?
He asked. My mouth popped open to respond, but my thoughts froze. My dinner would be the event of the year, and he had lost track of what week it was? I made my turkey gravy from scratch, for fuck's sake. He must really love comics.
Just kidding, Memphis said.
I'll be there at 2. Make that 1, I corrected him.
Got it.
I accepted my coffee and headed over to the bookstore section to see what new releases Megan had on display. My heart swelled and tears burned the back of my eyes when I saw Chaz's latest book, front and center. I had my own personalized copy at home, of course, but I couldn't resist picking it up and holding it in my hands. I turned it over and looked at the photo on the back cover. My beautiful friend had never looked happier than he did in that picture, but I knew it had nothing to do with the photographer or their photoshopping skills, and everything to do with the wedding band on Chaz's finger. I returned the book to the shelf and walked over to Megan's store, Curious Things. She was using her online connections to help me find some special items for the moms in my life for Christmas. I was on the lookout for a rare Janis Joplin vinyl record from 1969 and a record player for my mom, and vintage Tonala Mexican pottery for Martina. Any luck, May? Not yet, cutie. Don't lose faith. I won't let you down. Better not, I said, then pointed to her blonde curls she had piled on top of her head in what appeared to be a messy bun, but my trained eye told me she spent at least 20 minutes artfully arranging it to look that way. You're not really threatening my hair, are you? She pointed at the hot chocolate in my hand. Because 2 can play at that game. Touché. I'll be in touch as soon as I have something concrete, Megan assured me. So, maybe in time for Christmas next year. Snark ass. Ooh, I love that one, I told her. You're gonna love the items I find for your moms, too. I promise you that I have a few good leads. Too bad you don't have a few good men, I shot back. Hell, I'd settle for one, she replied dry.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?